You Know Who coming back to do you know what? I'm here to review the third, as far as I know, the third Godzilla movie, King Kong versus Godzilla. No, unfortunately this is a review for the American version because I don't think there's an official American release of the Japanese version. I'm not going to bootleg, try to track it down or whatever. I just got the original, or I mean the actual DVD. And it's funny because there's a clip from me from 1989 doing a brief review of this, which maybe I will show you now.
And then one of probably the most Hollywood movie greats, two mightiest monsters of all time, King Kong versus Godzilla. Now this is a very pretty good, sorta, in a way, movie, I think, because I'm not hard to please.
So that's when I was 12, and that's kind of what I thought about this movie, and I'm surprised I thought that then, because it's what I think now. This is ridiculous. And I'm referring, of course, to the American version, which is the only version I've seen, but still, it's the majority of the movie. It's not quite as butchered as like King of the Monsters. You know, the majority of the movie is the Japanese stuff. They just that lame American stuff they put in there, and it's just like, oh my god, you know. It's like, well, what can you tell us about Godzilla? It's just so, this movie's it's pretty hard. It was pretty hard to watch. Even the Japanese stuff, they really went wacko with this. Now, first of all, I don't know if this is the very first time Japanese, I don't know if this is the first incarnation of King Kong in the Japanese cinema world, but King Kong is just, I don't know, what happened between Godzilla Raids Again and this movie is just, I don't know, ridiculous. I mean, you got like Toho scope and color, and I don't know, by this time I think this is like the 60s, correct? It might be the early 60s or something, so there hadn't been a Godzilla movie for a while, and this is just, oh man, it's the 60s, and it's a goofy time, I guess, because this movie's absolutely goofy. Like I was saying before, the Japanese version of King Kong is so goofy and just dumb looking, his face and everything like that. I mean, it's just ridiculous. You know, it sounds great, doesn't it? King Kong versus Godzilla, you know, and even says so like on the box, two of the mightiest monsters of all time. And it sounds just like the best movie in the world. And it's like the opposite. It's just, the finished project, the finished, you know, product is pretty much the opposite, where it's not the best movie in the world, far from it. So that's too bad. 1.5 stars for King Kong versus Godzilla. I will say that this is, like I say, it's the American version. I've never seen any version other than the American version. But I suspect that even a Japanese version of this wouldn't be all that amazing, because the American version is mostly Japanese footage anyway. So, oh gosh, you know, this is when Godzilla gets all goofy. This is the beginning of like the goofy Godzilla era, where he's doing just all kinds of goofy things. And it's just, like I say, it's 60s goofball goofiness, you know, and it's just, you know, I've always been a stickler ever since I was a kid, and that's one of the reasons I like these movies, is for the miniature stuff and all this miniature stuff and all the goofiness of the miniatures and stuff. And one of the things that's actually kind of cool and gross at the same time about this movie is that octopus scene. I had forgotten all about that until I rewatched it recently. I'm like, oh man, as soon as I saw it, I'm like, this is the octopus, isn't it? And so they actually have, which is kind of cool, they actually have a real octopus in, you know, crushing like miniature, going through a miniature set, which is kind of cool. And it's kind of gross at the same time, because you see its little like little breather gill thing or whatever. You see it, it's kind of gross. And they actually have a fake, they actually make a fake octopus so it can like go on King Kong. King Kong fights this octopus, and oh man, you know, reliving this movie in your head is just kind of it's kind of bad for your head. there's really very little about this movie that's any good. I really, like in all the Godzilla movies, I don't really like the native stuff. They do this a lot where it's like, you know, the infant island or whatever, and it's all these natives and stuff, and just like do 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 do. You know, I don't really like the native stuff in many of these Godzilla movies, if any of them at all. I just think it's like, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Is this the one? I think this is the one where it's like they give all the natives cigarettes. Oh man.
Cigarettes. Inhale. Inhale. They satisfy.
How lame is that? And there's this kid who's like, give me a cigarette, and he's like, don't tell your parents. And it's just like, what the fuck?
Oh, your mommy. You better not smoke it around home.
It's just like, you know, yeah, we're bringing civilization to the island. Here's some cigarettes and some, oh my god.
Things all right? It's okay. They're all smoking.
That's so lame. It's such a pathetic example of whatever, society or quote-unquote civilization. It's like, go to hell. I don't think I really have much to say about this other than it's got some of the most, like I say, it's such a shame that the direction they went from, you know, the second one, Godzilla Raids Again, being relatively competent and serious, to just like all of a sudden, you know, they're transporting King Kong by all these super strong fishing line wire, and then Godzilla's like this, and then they'll just drop King Kong on him, and it's just like, King Kong's transported, by the way, like this, and it's just like, some of the, oh my god, you know. I mean, it's fun to watch for like laughability, but like I say, this is the beginning of just goofball Godzilla era, so it's probably like, with the exception of maybe a few of the movies, which I gotta rewatch, probably my least favorite Godzilla era. And until you get like into the 70s, I kind of like the Mechagodzilla and stuff, which of course will be reviewed after I rewatch them. But this is one of my least favorite Godzilla movies, period. So I think I've been talking about it enough. So that's my review for the American version of King Kong versus Godzilla. 1.5 stars. There's a lot of funny stuff and a lot of funny model stuff, and just like King Kong, just there's this one part where he's like slides down a hill and just like, oh, I can't even remember, but maybe I'll put the shots over it while I mention it, or put the shots in here. It's just a lot of laughable stuff in this movie, so it's a good, funny romp for just being pathetic. Thanks for watching.